Join us on Tomorrow's World today as we journey through the worlds of inspiration, creation, innovation, and production to find the ideas and technologies that are shaping our future. In this 4-part exploration, we visit the world of innovation to discover how nuclear energy can help us achieve the 2050 goal of a zero carbon footprint. From Inventionland World Headquarters, here's your host, George Davison.
Hey Greg, I'd like to learn more about nuclear technology. You know, from its history to how it may play a role in creating a zero carbon footprint.
Well, George, you know, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions out there around nuclear energy.
There are, and I'd like you to investigate that too. Also, they've invented small modular reactors and microreactors that'll be providing energy to remote places, which is just fascinating to me.
And they can provide power when there are major outages.
And I just read about a project to help build nuclear power plants on the moon. Now that's tomorrow's world. That's why I'd like you to go and investigate nuclear energy. You're going to go out and talk with top scientists, engineers, and officials. Are you ready to take the deep dive into nuclear energy?
Well, I've already done some background research and I am ready to hear it from the experts themselves.
That's great. Your first stop is in Washington, D.C.
I'm on my way there, George. Here I am in Washington, D.C., outside the U.S. Capitol, where we're going to learn how nuclear energy is going to help us to achieve our goal of a zero carbon footprint by 2050. Now, reducing carbon emissions will obviously make for better air quality, but it will also help to slow down climate change, which is responsible for rising sea levels, droughts, even wildfires. Now, we're going to meet with Spencer Nelson. He's the Senior Research Director at ClearPath. We're going to learn from him exactly how much energy the world needs and how the production of that energy is fueling the current climate change. Hey, you must be Spencer.
Oh, hey, great to meet you.
Great to meet you too. Thanks for taking the time with us today.
No problem.
So we're going to dive in with a really big question that probably has a really big answer. Exactly how much energy does the world need and use today?
Well, Greg, it's a significant amount. Right now, we use approximately 15 billion tons of oil equivalent spread out across electricity, heating, transportation, everything. And it's the amount of energy that we need to have a modern society.
Wow. Now, speaking of that, I guess if you look at the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution through the last 150 years or so, most researchers would agree that human activity has really contributed to the increase in greenhouse gases. That's clearly something we're not going to be able to change overnight. What can we do to help things out?
Well, there's a lot of things that we can add. Additional clean energy sources, we can look at energy efficiency, we can also even capture carbon emissions that are coming out of power plants.
And actually reuse that to help us out. That's awesome. Now, one of the things we've been hearing about that's sort of a problem now, but is certainly going to be a problem in the future, is what's called climate migration. And I've heard statistics that have shown that potentially 143 million people could be displaced worldwide due to climate change.
Yeah, it's absolutely an issue that's going to have to be managed. I think that number is kind of a worst case scenario if we don't reduce our emissions. But there's a lot that we can do to choose cleaner sources, to capture emissions from power plants and choose energy efficiency that could avoid that outcome.
So Spencer, given some of the statistics that you gave me earlier, it would seem as though there's plenty of energy in the world, but there are still lots of people who go without.
Absolutely. There's still 10% of the world that doesn't have access to electricity. And in addition to that, there are a couple billion who have limited energy access where they have blackouts or only a few hours a day. And it's really important that we give them abundant, reliable energy that's cleaner and affordable.
Now, what are some of the ways that we can help out with that?
One important way is nuclear energy. It doesn't use a lot of land, it produces a lot of energy, and most importantly, it's zero emission.
And that's one of the keys here, is that zero carbon footprint. All right, Spencer, thank you very much. This is a good way for me to get over to Dr. Katie Huff over at the Department of Energy.
Thank you.
We're on a mission to reach zero carbon emissions by 2050. One surefire way to help with that is nuclear energy. I'm at the Department of Energy Office of Nuclear Energy, where I'm going to meet with Dr. Katie Huff. She's the Acting Assistant Secretary and Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary to the Office of Nuclear Energy. Dr. Huff.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So we're learning that nuclear energy is going to be a key component in us reaching a net zero carbon future. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. Nuclear energy provides the majority of the clean electricity in the United States. And as we look towards decarbonizing the rest of it, carbon emitting sources and fossil fuels, nuclear energy is going to play an essential role in that transition, both existing reactors and advanced reactors.
Okay, now I know that the DOE is involved in funding some research that's moving all of that forward. Tell me about that.
The DOE is funding advanced reactor research as well as existing reactor research around operations and maintenance improvements, accident-tolerant fuels, and markets beyond electricity, including a hydrogen economy and applications of heat for industrial processing and advanced fuels.
All right, great. Well, can't wait to learn more. So, Dr. Huff, how important is nuclear energy going to be to tomorrow's world?
Oh, it's going to be absolutely essential. As we attempt to decarbonize the globe, which is going to be absolutely necessary to fight climate change, there are going to be a lot of applications for nuclear power in that decarbonization, including, for example, desalination, where we remove the salt from seawater, and heat from nuclear energy is one of the only ways we can do that without emitting carbon.
So a lot of people feel that with those alternate sources of energy, wind, solar, and water, that we don't need nuclear power, but that's really not true.
No, that's right. Renewables, as they exist today, are quite variable with the weather. For example, solar energy is working when the sun is risen, but that's not necessarily when people need power. And so to modulate the difference between when energy is produced and when it's needed, you need a lot of battery storage, or you need to back up that grid with fossil energy or nuclear energy. We want to get away from fossils, and grid-scale battery storage really isn't at the scale we need to back up all of the renewable expansion we're going to need. So nuclear is a great option to back up those renewables.
So it seems as though all of these alternate sources of energy need to work together in order to get us to the future we want.
Yes, absolutely. And with the variability of both existing and advanced reactors, I believe that renewable energy will work very nicely with nuclear energy backing it up.
That's great. Well, that's exactly what I'm off to Idaho Falls to learn about. So thank you very much. I made it to Idaho Falls, and I'm going to meet with Emma Redfoot. She's a reactor engineer with the advanced fission company Oklo, and we're going to talk about how nuclear power complements alternate forms of energy like hydro. Hi, Emma.
Hi, Greg.
Great to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Well, we're out here in the middle of this wind farm because I want to know more about how we take solar, hydro, and wind along with nuclear energy and then put that together in a marriage that'll give us the power that we need moving forward.
That's a great question. It's something I questioned a lot when I was an environmental studies major. What I learned is that we need all of these clean energy sources if we're going to deal with energy poverty while also tackling climate change. Let's go to Idaho National Lab so I can show you the research.
Excellent. I'm in Idaho Falls at the Idaho National Laboratory. I'm here to meet up again with Emma Redfoot and get an answer to the question a lot of people have been asking. Why do we need advanced nuclear reactors? Hi, Emma.
Hi, it's good to see you, Greg.
Advanced nuclear reactors. This is a term that we hear bandied about in a lot of different ways. Tell me exactly what that means.
Yeah, that's a very confusing term. It's also one of my favorite topics, so thanks for asking. Advanced nuclear reactors generally refers to reactors that don't use water in their primary flow system. So that means there's a lot of different advanced reactor designs out there. There's a lot of different fuel types. There's a lot of different liquids that you have flowing through them. Some don't even use liquids. They use, solid systems. What's great about that is all those different reactor designs can then be used where they complement the demands of the community the most. And so some places want to produce hydrogen, which means they need really high temperatures. So things like high temperature gas reactors and molten salt reactors are great. Consuming nuclear waste as fuel is something that advanced reactors can do. So sodium fast reactors would be great for trying to reduce your waste burden. A lot of these can also operate flexibly. I'm going to talk about two different general categories of modern reactor design right now.
Sounds great.
Small modular reactors and microreactors. So small modular reactors is one term you hear a lot of the time. Generally, small modular reactors refers to anything that's under 300 megawatts electric, and they often do use water as in their primary system. So this is the NuScale small modular reactor, and there's two things that really excite me about these. They are able to be factory fabricated, and they're able to be more flexible to what their customers' needs are. So the factory fabrication allows for rapid deployment, high quality standards, and for us to use all of the insights that nuclear can gain from so many industries out there that have scaled production using good industrial process practices.
Right.
The flexibility aspect, so in Idaho, for example, we're seeing the population grow really quickly. But right now we might only need 3 reactors, while we might need 12 in, say, a decade. But you can add those modules at a later date as they become necessary. The other category I'm going to talk to you about is microreactors. So microreactors are generally under 20 megawatts, so they're really, really little. We have microreactors all over this country as research and test reactors.
Okay.
Microreactors are great for being able to deploy in remote communities, then to adjust to meet the local community's needs. So this is all about putting this in a community to make their lives better. And this is why I became a nuclear engineer. It was really to address local communities' challenges.
Well, that's amazing, but is it really a problem of that magnitude?
I mean, 300 million people in India alone don't have reliable access to electricity. And what that means is that they don't have as great of access to healthcare, to education. Women's rights improves with more energy consumption. So what we're dealing with in the world now is we're dealing with climate change, where we have to replace all of these fossil fuels, as well as needing to meet the demands of much of the world in order for them to live a higher quality of life and be able to choose what they want to do with their lives.
The microreactors are going to be able to be placed in these areas where they're so desperately needed.
Yes, that's why I'm so excited about factory fabrication and being able to deploy quickly, is because we can put a lot of these reactors out there due to faster manufacturing processes.
So what's some of the research that's going on right now in these areas? Are there some things here you can show me?
Yeah, absolutely. The research that's been going on for decades is helping to make these advanced reactors a reality so that we can deploy them quickly. Let me show you.
So the research that's going on here, tell me exactly where you see nuclear energy going as we move forward.
I mean, we've been talking about advanced reactors this whole time. And the reason that I think advanced reactors can be deployed quickly all over the world is because we know so much about them. And we know so much about them because of research that's been happening for decades. Materials research is one of the most important areas.
Right, and I know that one of the other aspects that's moving things forward is that the national labs are now partnering with private companies as well, and that's a boon for everybody.
Yeah, the Oklo Aurora is one of the best examples. The first commercial nuclear power plant that's going to be deployed at Idaho National Lab. And not only is it going to be deployed here, but it also is going to be taking what is now considered nuclear waste from EBR-2 and using that as fuel for this new reactor.
So being able to use nuclear waste as fuel is a game changer across the entire board.
Yeah, not only does it allow for us to consume this thing that's viewed as a major burden and makes people uncomfortable, but it also means that we don't have to mine.
Right.
And so environmental benefits on both sides.
Wow, and then that means that even the amount of waste that we're going to be dealing with is going to be so much smaller, and all of this contributes to a smaller carbon footprint. All right, well, Emma, thank you very much. This has been great.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see what happens as we move forward.
Okay.
Idaho National Laboratory has the history of being the first place that nuclear electricity was produced. Well over half of all of the advanced nuclear reactors that were developed in the world today started here in Idaho. We're now on the cusp of launching the next generation of advanced reactors. The new light water reactors, the new high temperature gas cooled reactors, fast reactors, all of those reactors are looking to Idaho to help them get into the commercial world. Nuclear is on the cusp of seeing these new technologies succeed finally because of the attributes of nuclear power. Being a clean energy source, being a secure energy source, and finally taking technologies that Idaho developed back in the 60s and 70s, we're finally seeing the industries, the oil and gas companies, the fossil fuels, integrating with renewable energy sources. So the job of the Idaho National Laboratory today is to deploy the technologies that we've been working on for decades. The reactor after next. Not to just study it anymore, we want to get those technologies deployed into the marketplace, producing clean energy, not just electricity, but now we're aspiring to produce hydrogen, desalination, district heating, all these applications that provide clean energy, not only in the electricity market, but in transportation, in industrial processes. These are things we've been studying for decades, and now is the time that the reactor companies like USNC and others have found investors. And there's really an appetite to invest in clean energy like nuclear. I think it's very clear that the time is now to deploy these technologies, and it's time for the U.S. to take leadership. That's why the Idaho National Laboratory and other national laboratories are supporting companies like USNC and the other awardees of the Department of Energy's Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program, because we led the deployment of the light water reactor technology. We developed the advanced reactors. Other countries are developing these technologies based on what we've done. It's time for us to make that leap and innovate and develop the more advanced reactors for the next generation of clean energy.
In this episode, we've learned a lot of basic information about nuclear energy and how it can help us to achieve our goals of a net zero carbon footprint by 2050. Now, as we become more concerned with climate change and become more technologically advanced, we really need to start thinking about where our power comes from. Now, wind, solar, and hydro are all going to be vital parts of the energy mix moving forward, but none of these is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year power source. This is where nuclear energy really comes into play. We've also learned about energy poverty and how certain areas of the world either have very limited access or no access to even basic electricity. This is where modular nuclear reactors can be a real solution to these situations. So please, join us for our next episode as we continue to explore the innovations happening with this amazing technology. For Tomorrow's World Today, I'm Greg Costantino.